For freedom, Christ set us free. For you are called for freedom. St. Paul says to the Galatians and says to us today. Freedom and liberty are two things so precious to us Americans. This week we celebrate the 4th of July, our Independence Day. We celebrate that day when we declared our freedom from tyrannical government. And the first reading and also the gospel we have today show us the nature of true freedom. Freedom means leaving everything, setting aside our own preferences, our own ways of doing things, and following the way of the Lord, following God, fulfilling our vocation, fulfilling the call that we have received from God, living according to that image and likeness of God that we're all made in. There are really kind of three ways that I think, three general ways we can look at freedom. One of the ways is enshrined in our popular culture. It's been kind of idealized, even idolized in Western and American culture for the last probably, 60 or 70 years. And it's a freedom which says the free person is one who does what they want, when they want, and as much as they want to do it. Freedom is seen as a license to do whatever one wants to do. That kind of vision of freedom is idolized in movies and books and magazines every single day, and has for many years in our culture. St. Paul says, don't use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. When he speaks of the flesh, he doesn't just mean something like lust. St. Paul means all those selfish, sinful tendencies that are there within our hearts. In a way, our culture idolizes the law of the flesh. Another view of freedom is that the free man the free person is the one who doesn't break any laws, that follows the law of the land. Don't break any laws, you're a free person. You break laws and you're going to be thrown in jail. So therefore, if you obey the law of the land, you're free. That's a very narrow, very restrictive view of what freedom is. What Jesus came to proclaim and to show us was a whole different kind of freedom. What enslaves us is the darkness of error. What enslaves us is the darkness within our hearts, that sinful, selfish tendencies that lurk there within all of us. That's what Christ came to set us free from. Free to live in the deepest identity that we have, which is beloved sons and daughters of a loving, faithful Father. When we're rooted and grounded in that identity made in the image and likeness of God, then we're truly free. And so Elisha, when he's called, when he finds his vocation, when he hears the call of the Lord, he burns all those the equipment and offers in sacrifice those oxen, gives it to his family and friends, and follows the way of the Lord. That's freedom. As you know, the Catholic Church in the United States have called all of us to a fortnight for freedom, 14 days of prayer for our country in a very special way. They've asked us to pray for 3 special intentions. The first intention is for religious liberty and freedom of conscience. The second intention that they've asked us to pray for is the sanctity of marriage as God intended it between one man and one woman. And the third intention is to pray for the dignity, the sanctity of human life from conception until natural death. Some of you may have heard about the trial of an abortion doctor in Philadelphia. His name was Dr. Kermit Gosnell. He was known for doing late-term abortions. He was brought to trial because of the complications of a young woman who died. When they investigated him, they discovered that in his abortion clinic, babies were being born alive and then killed afterwards because of botched abortions. The things that they found there were horrific and horrendous. And I can promise you, if it was happening in that abortion clinic, it's happening in other abortion clinics around the United States. And so there's been some proposals in our U.S. Congress and also in some state legislatures to pass laws that would protect children in the womb after viability, which is about 20 months, 20 weeks. But you know, our country has the most liberal abortion laws of any country in the whole world. Most countries in Europe restrict abortion after a certain period of time. And our nation, dedicated to pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that's enshrined in our Declaration of Independence, in our country, a child can be deprived of life up until the very moment that they're born. And it's legal to practice the horrific partial birth abortion to this day in our country. So we need to pray and to encourage our legislatures to pass laws that would protect children at least at some point. And we believe and we teach, and what the Western civilization has believed for centuries, is that life begins at conception. But at least if we could get laws that would protect children after they're at least viable, would be a move in the right direction. We're also asked to pray for the sanctity of marriage as the way that God intended it. You're probably aware that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the Defense of Marriage Act that the U.S. Congress passed, and also overturned a law that was passed in California that declared that marriage was only between a man and a woman. Just think of it. The most liberal state in the whole country is California. A majority of their voters voted for this law. And now a few judges have overturned that. What the U.S. bishops have said is that the U.S. Supreme Court got it wrong. Our teaching on this is universal and unchanged. Most of the Western world and most of even the Eastern world has always believed for centuries that marriage is simply between a man and a woman, one man and one woman. We believe that this truth is inscribed in the laws of nature, in the ways that God made humanity, made man and woman, that it was established at the creation of the world. And so no government power has the authority or the ability to redefine the essence of marriage. At the same time, Catholic teaching protects and believes in the dignity of every human person, that everyone deserves love and respect, including those that experience same-sex attraction. So this reality, it calls for compassion and sensitivity and pastoral care, but also demands that we stand firm on what we believe is a fundamental truth, that the good of children, the good of society, is built on the bedrock and the pillar of marriage between one man and one woman. Church will never change that teaching, that belief. And we're also praying for religious liberty and freedom of conscience. The government is trying to redefine the freedom of worship, the freedom of religion, as being freedom of worship. In other words, they're trying to say that we are free while we're within these walls here to believe and profess what we want to. But then when we walk out those doors, we're not free to practice our religion in the public square. And that it doesn't matter if you own your own business or not. You're not free to practice your religious beliefs. In discussions about this, some people have challenged me and said, well, Father, don't you believe in the separation of church and state? Why should the Catholic Church impose its religion on all of us? But you know, the separation of church and state is found nowhere in the U.S. Constitution. It is found nowhere in any amendment that was ever made to the Constitution. After the first Congress ratified the Constitution, the states demanded that there be passed a Bill of Rights. The First Amendment of the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights starts out by saying this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the very first words of the First Amendment. So much did our founding fathers believe in the importance of this fundamental civil liberty. Now the government is telling us that regardless of what your religious beliefs are, you have to follow what we tell you. That they're insisting that a place like Christian Brothers University or Catholic Charities provide coverage for not just contraceptives, which you always hear about, but for sterilization and also for the morning after pill, pills which cause abortions. We will never do that. The bishops have said if they try to force us to do this, we'll simply shut down those institutions. You know, there's no institution in the whole country that provides more services for the poor, that educates more people and more children. There's no institution in the world, actually, that does more than the Catholic Church does for the underprivileged, for the poor, to educate children. So our religious freedom, our liberties are under attack in our day and age. It's important that we use the resources that we have. The main resource that we have as the people of faith is prayer. To get on our knees and beseech God to change the hearts of those judges and lawmakers that would try to overturn these fundamental truths and try to impose really the law of the Spirit on all of us. The law of the flesh on all of us. So today, let us hear these words of St. Paul. For freedom Christ set us free. You are called for freedom, brothers and sisters. He says, the whole law is fulfilled in this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Serve one another through love. That is where true freedom is found. May we be allowed to live out that kind of freedom in our nation, which has always protected that, but which in our day is definitely under attack.